Hello, and you are very welcome to the Ireland Radar podcast. It's been a minute since we last spoke, and we've got a fair bit to run through for today. First and foremost, we'll be looking at the League of Ireland and whether Shamrock Rovers already have one hand on the trophy. We'll also look to the Irish men after Heimir Hallgrimsson announced his squad for the June friendlies, and we'll take a look at some of the highs and lows of the season for some of Ireland's key players. We'll also be hearing from the Athletic's James Pearce later on in the podcast as Kelleher's Liverpool future is up in the air. We almost had a full house today, but Dylan Hudson's mic has decided to stop working at a very convenient time. So for the meantime, anyways, it's just myself, Joseph Murray, along with Ronan Calvert and James French. Lads, how are we getting on? It's been a while.
Well, good, Joe. Yeah, it's the usual at this stage. It's a standard to record every 3 months, but when we do actually decide to chat, we do put in a proper effort at least. So yeah, hopefully we have a good chat because we have a lot to catch up on anyway. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Summer 25, we're back.
James, it's your last night in Bilbao, and somehow you've decided to jump on a podcast instead of getting smashed on a night out. I have to commend it, to be fair, although I don't know, is it naive or just dedication?
It's as I was saying earlier, it's just a veteran move. I'm going home tomorrow with the bank holiday coming up. Going to be 2 days on the grog, so it's preparation. Preparation is key, mentally and physically, and the day off was needed.
Self-preservation is admirable, to be fair. We might as well jump straight into it though, and go straight into the League of Ireland because it's been a fairly eventful night. We'll just run through the results from this round of fixtures. Obviously, Shamrock Rovers and Galway United played out a 0-0 draw. That was the match I was watching, and I probably had the displeasure of tuning into all 90 minutes of that. That was the late kickoff at 8 o'clock. The earlier games at 7:45 saw Bohemians win 1-0 against Derry City. Cork City played out a 1-0 draw against Shelburne. Waterford and Drogheda played out a 2-2 draw. And the only game of the night, or one of two games of the night that saw a winner, was St. Pat's going up 1-0 against Sligo Rovers at the Showgrounds, and it was former Sligo man Aidan Keena who scored a penalty on the night. Lads, what do you think of what happened tonight, and what were you tuning into?
I was watching Hats myself. Well, kind of half an eye on Treaty and Cove in the first division, which is all right. It was what it was. And then a bit of an eye on Pats and Sligo as well. Probably not the main story of the night, to be fair, but Pats have kind of been struggling recently, so I thought it'd be kind of interesting to see if they could turn it around against Sligo. And it was a bit of an improvement, to be fair. Like, there's been kind of a lot of criticism of their players, like kind of their frontline players for maybe not like trying enough or their like effort levels not being great. But yeah, they kind of brought in like the likes of Levy and Simon Power tonight, and they were quite good. So yeah, they're good value for 1-0 win. So yeah, with Shamrock Rovers only drawing, like maybe there's a chance for that kind of pack of teams behind them, like Pats and Bows and whatever, to maybe catch up on them slightly in the coming weeks. But yeah, we'll have to see after the break, I think.
I was tuning into Balls Derry. Kind of Reynolds' revival continues. Like it's mad. Like Balls up to third now. Like after like the shocking start they've had. Again, like it should have been 2 or 3. Like Derry got a red. Like Colin Whelan had so many chances. Balls just like kind of really struggling to score from open play. Like relying on penalties, late goals from corners and stuff, set pieces. Like I was really impressed with him though. I think Sean Graham in particular, I thought he was a really good sign, and he was absolutely quality. Devoy as well, Tierney. I think they've like a real good core there. If they can just kind of start taking their chances, like I think they could really be like a shoe-in for kind of Europe, but just whether they can kind of start taking their chances, because it should have been 2 or 3, it should have been out of sight really near the end of the game. Derry kind of was really weird kind of first half there. He made like 4 subs. Didn't start Jordan White, which I just don't understand, because every time I watched him, I think he's absolute quality. Like I think probably still do a job in the Championship League One. But yeah, only negative really. It was a good game. Only negative really that the Moose didn't get on, which I was a bit raging about. But yeah, interesting kind of in all the games with the league. It's like it's kind of close in every game, and I'm surprised at how kind of Shells have fallen off actually recently with kind of just really struggling to win games. They're just drawing so much, and it'll just be interesting to see how the next month goes with Drogheda, and if they do fall off and kind of Pats, Shells and Derry do finally start to be consistent. Because at the minute it's just it's mad. Every team is just extremely inconsistent.
What do you think the
Yeah.
problem is with Shells, James? Is it the centre back situation there? Like, I think they have like Mark Coyle back there most weeks and stuff. And a couple of times I watched them, it just looked like they're not half as like solid as they were last season.
100%, yeah. Like it's like, because I think Shells, for some reason Shells are showing like nearly every second week on Virgin. So I've kind of just slowly been watching them the most this season, and they like look really good going forward. Like they create the most chance in the league, I'm pretty sure. Like stats wise, they've had the most possession and stuff. Like Duff's really trying to like evolve them into like a possession dominant team, because obviously like that's for the way if you going forward in the future, that's how you're going to win league titles. Like, and like stats wise and stuff, creating chances wise in a lot of games, they've been really good, but just keep conceding stupid goals. Like they're just really, compared to last season, they're really fragile. Like if you're like I'm going to compare Shell's to Atletico Madrid, but like Atletico Madrid kind of had the same when they went from being really really offensive to like they're a bit more kind of positive last couple of years, and the defense league they kind of got a bit worse. Like it's a bit of a trade off, but I think definitely that the injury issues at the back haven't helped. One plus is definitely James Norris. I think he's probably been like top 2, top 3 best left backs in the league. I think he's been absolutely brilliant. Like he's an absolute steal for them, getting him on loan for Liverpool.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting one, and it's kind of one I can't really put my finger on whether Shelburne have gotten worse or the rest of the league have gotten better, or whether it's a combination of both. Because even if you look at Drogheda, obviously they had the FAI Cup win last year, which was absolutely massive for them. But I don't think anyone would have expected them to be this close to the top of the table this far into the season. I mean, they're second at the minute, just 6 points off Shamrock Rovers, and were top of the table for such a long period at the start of the season as well. So I'm not really sure what the status of the league is at the minute. Is it a case that Shamrock Rovers have upped their level from last year and that's why they've opened up a bit of a gap at the start of the year? Or is it a case that the likes of Shelburne and even St. Pat's, because they finished last season so well, have just dropped off, and it's given Shamrock Rovers a chance to capitalise?
I kind of think that's it, to be fair. I think Pats, like in the second half of last season with Kenny and likewise kind of Shells, just had so much like momentum behind him that just helped him so much, and just the amount of confidence in those two camps just kind of like flowed into every week. And when they're on that roll, they were two serious teams. Like I think they probably outperformed the talent of the squad. Definitely Shells anyway. I think they're probably punching upwards a little bit. And Kenny regards Pat, like last week, kind of said, it was probably unrealistic to think they were actually proper like title favourites or at least title challengers this year, because when you came in, they were kind of in like a relegation scrap, and that was for a reason. Okay, made a few signings like El Bazzetti, Anang as well were pretty decent signings, but like the kind of spine of the team there, I don't think is really like champions quality. They probably lack like a kind of steely midfielder, like someone like a Mark Coyle or like Chris Shields years ago. They don't really have that kind of character, I don't think. So yeah, that's kind of my take on those two teams. I think they're kind of gone back to their kind of norm, their average. Whereas Rovers seem to have kicked on. Like I've watched a couple of their games in the last month, and I thought they looked really good. Even when they're winning a couple of years ago, like some of their football might have been a bit slow, and even when they're winning like plenty of games, some supporters might complain about the style of football, but it's looked a lot kind of faster and sharper. And yeah, I think they look proper quality this year, and it kind of maybe they've basically continued on from where they left off in the Conference League last year, and with like Michael Noonan thrown in there as well and a couple of others. I think I'd probably fancy them to go all the way now, but I'm sure there'll be a few issues along the way, a few drops of form, but yeah, I don't think they'll drop as many points as the rest will.
Yeah, I
Sure.
think it's probably Rovers to lose now. Like the quality of the squad is ridiculous, and I think last season was probably a mix of injuries, Europe, maybe some players taking the eye off the ball after winning so many league titles in a row. Like I'd find it very hard to see Rovers not win the league now. Just kind of with how consistent they've been. I think the only couple of things that could kind of haunt them is an under injury crisis, and I've seen in Europe, I think they're seeded right until the last round of the Conference League. So if they do go really far in qualifying, like it could hinder them in domestically, obviously, kind of as it did in games last year. Like especially with their recruitment in the summer, I really thought it was quite poor. Like I thought there's a real chance to build on the European performance, and I just thought like Farouja and losing Farouja and Kenny, like a lot of legs in both of them, lots of speed, athleticism. I think like the squad's got very old, and are they really that determined to win more? Like, but I think they've kind of shut me up, and I think the likes of Victor and John O'Sullivan, Corey O'Sullivan, all them like playing as well is like a real nice blend of like kind of really kind of veterans like Gaffney and Green, and then you've got like these guys are like 17, 18 and just like really talented. So it's a very nice mix, and like they'll be determined to kind of right the wrongs of last year, and I'd be very surprised if they didn't go on and win the league now. And I think Drogheda remind me a lot of Shells from last year, like with how they've kind of started the season. I don't think it's really sustainable. In saying that, it's 19 games gone, they're still second, but I'd expect a collapse in the next month or two, just kind of going off the way they play, like, and the fact that they're one of the weaker sides in the division quality wise. So it'd be interesting to see who kind of kicks on the Challenge Rovers, because no one really has yet. Will it be Bows, Pats, or Derry, or will even Shells kind of start to come back into it? So it'll be interesting to see how the next month or two plays out.
Yeah, for sure. Bows have really found form as the season has gone on. Obviously, they had a really poor start, but I think they've won, I think, nearly 7 out of their last 10 or something like that. So it's a really impressive turn of form for them. And I think a lot of the people who were probably shouting about Alan Reynolds to leave maybe have been silenced for now anyways, but there always does seem to be a little bit of discontent in the Bows camp. But if you look further down the league at the bottom two, and there really does seem to be a fair gap that's opened up between 9th and 8th. Cork City are currently sat on 13 points, and Waterford in 8th are on 23. So, I mean, it's very early to call it, and obviously so much can happen and form can change, but it almost does look like the two teams that are going to be in the bottom two have almost been, you don't want to say confirmed, but look, fairly nailed on at this point in the season anyways. Is there anything Cork City and or Sligo Rovers can do to escape the relegation dogfight, and if so, what is it?
I mean, it's not looking great for them at the moment, to be fair. They do have a summer transfer window that might help them out a small bit. Like I think both teams, we were kind of saying earlier before we started recording, that like they're both pretty okay teams. Like Sligo have some decent players and they can be like attractive to watch and stuff. So the fact they're coming last isn't a bad reflection on the whole league, but it is looking fairly bleak for them. They're probably just hoping not to finish last and win a relegation playoff instead. Cork, I mean, there's positive signs since Nash took over as manager. Sean Maguire is back as well. I think he scored tonight, if I'm not wrong. So they'll take some encouragement from that at least. Like, and they do have talented players, but like it's a long way back. I think that they're 10 points shy of Waterford, and I think Waterford have actually been really impressive in the last like 3 weeks. They're good against like Pats last week, and the previous week I think they might have won as well. So yeah, they're looking quite good. I think they're a team now who like look really kind of compact and work really hard, but also can kind of turn on fairly expansive style as well when they need to. So I'd say it's more likely that that gap could actually widen than narrow. I'd say if Waterford do kind of continue to go the way they have in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think it's hard to see either of them escaping now. I think it is the dynamic of like the gap between the bottom two and the rest of the league is kind of a bit different to a couple of years ago when you would have had like a UCD down there and bet most weeks by a couple of goals. Like I think Cork and Sligo can like still take points off teams that you've seen tonight with Cork drawn with Shells. Like Sligo obviously losing 1-0, but like they didn't get blown away. Like it's both teams do have quality, like as Ron was saying, like a Cork, especially young quality, like with Cork with Cathal Sullivan, and Sligo with Owen Elding, like two of the best young players so far this season in the league. Like so it'll be interesting to see if it does become like confirmed that both of them will go down early. What will the performances drop off, and kind of they just kind of the heads go down completely. But I think like if just looking at the table, I haven't watched Cork or Sligo a lot this season, but in terms of like Sligo have only won 3 games, lost 12. Like if they can start to kind of be a bit more better defensively and turn the loss into draws, like maybe they can claw it back. But I think just going off the age demographic of their squad as well and their starting lineup, like I think they've an 18-year-old, 19-year-old in their back line, first season playing senior adult football. Like so it is tough, and you can definitely sense that kind of bit of immaturity in how they play from like the 1 or 2 games I've seen them this season. Like they can be a bit naive, kind of you get that kind of bit of quality in the final third Elding and stuff, but I think that at the back they probably are a bit weak. But like on a whole, I think both teams are still have quality, still are nice to watch, and it's definitely, although the gap day is 8 points, it is big compared to a couple of years ago where we would have had a UCD down there. Maybe the gap would be 10 plus, and you could really watch the game, you can see the gap in quality. I think it is different that these teams do have quality and obviously young players that are really good.
I think even James, like those two players you mentioned as well, like they could well be leaving as well. I think Cathal O'Sullivan was over with Crystal Palace last week. Um, they seem to be pretty much nailed on favourites to sign him. Nottingham Forest as well are interested, but he could be gone. And Owen Elding, not as concrete a like report, but supposedly Sheffield Wednesday are interested there. Like so, yeah, not great for those teams. But I think just from our own probably point of view as like an Irish podcast, yeah, it's kind of good to see two young players like that kind of get picked up because I think they're two like very talented players who aren't getting like a huge amount of coverage, but like, yeah, O'Sullivan's a really tricky winger, like really talented. And Elding's goal last week was like unbelievable as well, like from like miles out. So yeah, I'd like to see those two lads kick on in their careers once they do leave. So yeah, we're keeping an eye on those two, I think.
You'd imagine both of them will move on in the summer if the gap is like kind of unclosable. You'd imagine the pair of them will move on. I think O'Sullivan definitely will anyway. To Palace, and I don't know about Elding, but Sullivan's like I think the Palace link with Cork as well, with Uma as well, and good for Irish lads that went through Palace recent years. Obviously Jacob Ryan as well from Cork, like so probably makes sense.
True.
It'd be good to see him kind of go out to Belgium, maybe with the link to I think it's Molenbeek, is it in the Belgium second tier? Jacob Ryan was over there. It'd be nice to see O'Sullivan maybe go over there, more of a development league, kind of not physical as an EFL loan, hopefully, if he does move there.
Yeah, can only speak from the perspective as a Galway United fan, and we've come up against Owen Elding and Cathal O'Sullivan in the past 3 games that we've played. And to be honest, like you can just see the technical quality that both of those players possess. Elding was, I would say, probably the most impactful player in the Connacht Derby 2 weeks ago, and the same story for Cathal O'Sullivan. Even though he didn't really have too much joy on the night, you can just see how dangerous he is and how close players have to get to him just to stop him from cutting in on his left foot, because once he gets into those positions, it is so dangerous. So I mean, you can see the gap that's already opened up between those teams and the rest of the teams above them. So if they were to lose them in the summer, I think it would probably be catastrophic for their chances. But we'll just give a quick run through to the first division as well. Dundalk, rather, not Drogheda, are very much leading the way in the first division. They've won 12 of their 17 games, drawn the other 5. They're unbeaten, and it already does look like they're running away with it. But Cove, to be fair to them, have kept the gap within 6 points. They're on 35 in second place. Bray are also not too far behind. They're on 34 in third. And then the rest, there's a fair bit of a gap. Treaty in fourth on 24. UCD just behind them, along with Wexford. And then the bottom 4 are Kerry, Finn Harps, Longford and Athlone. Athlone have had an absolute bonkers season. You could nearly dedicate a full episode to them with all the ownership stuff and the fact that they've lost so many key players at a really strange time in the season, plus all the management changes behind the scenes. We will dive into that on a later date, but we don't have a whole lot of time to do that right now because we do have to move on to the Irish men's squad for the June friendlies, and we'll go straight into that. In terms of what's on offer there, Hal Grimson's probably had his hands tied to a certain extent, with Seamus Coleman and Sammy Smodix both missing out due to injury. Andrew Moran is the only addition to the squad, and then you've got Josh Keeley, Killian Phillips, John Joe Patrick Finn and Josh Honohan, who were all called up to the initial squad and retained after a squad update. And I want to talk specifically about John Joe Patrick Finn because there's been such problems with the Irish midfield, and we finally have a player, although Reims have been relegated at the end of the league on season, but we finally do have a player who's playing quite an impactful role, quite a physically dominant role as well at the base of the midfield in a top 5 league. Surely that's a promising sign given the age profile of John Joe Patrick Finn and just what it could mean to the Irish team at the international stage as well, to have someone like that as part of their ranks.
I think it's like the main thing everyone's kind of looking forward to seeing over the next week or so, to be fair. And probably the main objective from this whole international break will be just trying to find that midfield player, even 2 of them, because Killian Phillips is in there as well, who's also like a kind of strong physical midfielder as well that we've really lacked. We've had plenty of guys who are kind of hard workers and they enjoy the kind of tough side of the game, but just actually in terms of muscle and size and athleticism, I think we've kind of lacked that with Patrick Finn. I think he kind of comes with the added thing of being very kind of technically assured. He's in the Real Madrid academy when he was very young, like, and he kind of moved his way up through Spanish football before moving to France over the winter. I think he's played 16 games since then. Not always a starter, but like, you know, when he has played and the kind of compilations and that you watch, like, he does look really composed and kind of maybe not the player like everyone assumed he was. I think he kind of played further up the field when he was younger, but he has kind of been outstanding in like his like tackling and kind of positional work off the ball mostly. So that's kind of interesting and something we also need. You know, we kind of all want the midfielder who like on the ball is good and is going to progress Ireland up the field of course. And I think he can do that. But just having more of a shield there as well is also good news because we can be a little bit soft in the middle, I feel. It was definitely a problem under Kenny. And I think it has kind of continued in terms of just like not closing down players and long shots and that kind of thing in that area of the field. So that's welcome. I was listening to a podcast that was talking about John Joe Patrick Finn actually, and that, you know, his actual passing stats wouldn't actually be that good, or like passing accuracy, and that wouldn't be statistically very impressive, even though some of the videos you might watch, he clearly can. So that's something to watch. But what is impressive is like on the ball, he does seem to like be quite confident moving out with it and like running past players and progressing himself. So yeah, it's kind of interesting for all of us just to learn a lot more about him, I think. And yeah, it's probably the main thing I'm going to be looking out for anyway.
Yeah, he does look very assured from the Twitter compilations. Like, to be fair with the passing accuracy, it could be like a thing. I don't know how Rams play. Maybe they're more of a direct side. I don't know, but it is. It seems like it's a profile we missed. I can't remember last time we had a profile like John Joe Patrick Finn in the squad, and it's gas. I think we were talking about this like a year ago. Our midfield just needs a shake up big time, and then like obviously this season, this like 6'2" guy just kind of spawns in France. I don't think a lot of people even knew he was over there really. Like, and he's like Twitter compilation. He looks like fucking like Prime Roger or something. Like, he's like really assured, confident, good in the tackle. He just looks like everything we need in a six. Like, can obviously move across the pitch well as well. He's not slow. Like, and it's just like it's really encouraging. Like with him and Moran in there now. Like, we've been calling out for Moran to be in there, incorporated quicker in for the last year, and I know his progress has been stunted a bit by the long moves, but it's just nice to see that both of them guys in and kind of just hopefully rejig our midfield a bit. I'd love to see Patrick Finn and Moran start a game together. I know it'll be quite a positive midfield, maybe with Jason Idah as well, but it's just really encouraging now to have kind of a couple of guys that we can pin our futures on in terms of midfield wise. Like, we have guys that hopefully can kind of perform at the international level and be assured on the ball and look up to that level. And I think maybe Moran and Finn, obviously the ages they're at, they've haven't had that many minutes this season in terms of starter, but like hopefully in the next year or two, like they can rack up kind of those senior minutes and really kind of become established players at their clubs, and then we'll kind of really be in business then internationally.
Have you watched Phillips for St. Mirren actually, James, like against Celtic or anything? Because I think he won Player of the Year.
Yeah, no, he's had a really good season at St. Mirren. Like, I think he was quite good at. It was a Shrewsbury that last year as well. They seemed to love him, and then he went to Aberdeen. Aberdeen didn't really like him, but to be fair, it was more of like just a bad move for him, because Aberdeen kind of play a lot more shorter passing. They kind of have a lot of kind of small kind of technical guys in midfield. It wouldn't be his kind of wouldn't be the perfect team for him to be in. And I think St. Mirren like are for like for the budget they have and stuff, they're like always really, really competitive against Celtic and Rangers, and had a really good season this year. Phillips, I think he scored at Ibrox, and he might have scored at Celtic Park as well. I think he scored against Rangers and Celtic this year. I think one of them was like a half volley. But like he's kind of like a box crashing kind of midfielder. Does score a lot of goals like for a midfielder as well. Like, I remember for the 21s, the goal against Italy, like he does get in the box, uses physicality, uses height to score, and it's obviously a good trait. I don't think he's probably technically as good as Finn or Moran, but if he can kind of be that physicality alongside them too, if he does go with that kind of experimental midfield trait in one of the games, I think it'll kind of accommodate Finn and Moran. Well, obviously Phillips is more physicality and kind of more kind of height and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I always think back to the quote that Hamer gave right at the start of his tenure, where he said he was looking for bastards. And do you think the addition of the likes of Finn and now Killian Phillips as well is moving more towards that, where the physical profile of the midfielders is maybe taking precedence over perhaps technical ability in that, particularly in those kind of roles, just shadowing the defensive line and then maybe contributing further up the pitch in terms of goals.
Possibly, yeah. Like we do like lose like a lot of kind of 50-50 physical battles and stuff. So I think it genuinely is something that needed to be looked at. Like, I mean, it's not like we haven't had kind of like intense kind of like midfielders. Like, I mean, Malumbi is like as close to that as you will ever get, you know. But I think between Phillips and his kind of attributes, I think I don't know if like Patrick Finn is like someone who plays with like a huge intensity, or is like, you know, kind of passionate kind of person in the middle of the pitch or whatever. I think he's more just a kind of sensible like football pick. Like he just seems to have good kind of awareness of space and good tackling technique and in winning possession. Like, so I think he's just a kind of just a good footballer. Like I think that's why he's earned his spot more than anything kind of in terms of philosophy. But yeah, I'm kind of he's the main one I want to watch. Like I think he's probably the more talented of two players. Like from what I've seen, almost certainly, really. But you know, I'm looking forward to seeing Phillips. Like I think with the 21s team in the Italy match at home, I think probably the best performance they had. Like after that game, because of the intensity Ireland played with, like a lot of the commentary online and all, like any fan who watched it was like, we'd kind of love the senior team to mirror this, just the kind of intensity and the passion and like how much like he cares, especially like he kind of summed up the whole team that night. So I'm kind of like thinking in that kind of way, like he just seems like a guy who's worked really hard. Like, he wasn't really anyone. He wasn't someone anyone would like earmarked to have a big career when he was like younger as a teenager. He's worked his arse off and he's gotten this far. Like, so, yeah, it just seems like a really kind of like humble lad, like who's just worked hard and he's worked really hard in Scotland. He's played well this year in Scotland, and yeah, I'm hoping he can just kind of like feed some energy into the team as well. So, I just think both are just sensible picks, to be honest, and hopefully just helps us, have more say in the middle of the pitch, like because we can just be overrun there sometimes.
I definitely think even we did need a bastard in midfield, but the side I'd be leaning on more in terms of like our midfield would have been, we needed more like guys that are kind of technically good, more composed, can take the ball under pressure, like Finn and Moran can do. Like Moran showed the cameo at Wembley was brilliant. Seeing that competition earlier on Twitter, and then we're obviously seeing Finn. Obviously, he looks very short on the ball, from like the small snippets we've seen. So I'd definitely be more inclined to be more excited about them two, just considering their profiles. But again, Killian Phillips had like a brilliant season. He's a really likable guy. Like anytime I heard him interviewed, very down to earth, and like obviously coming from the League of Ireland again, showing like that that new pathway is there to go from League of Ireland, go to England, and obviously he's now in Scotland now, and like a lot of kind of former League of Ireland guys are. So he definitely deserves off the season he's had, and he's definitely going to be an option going forward, considering his profile and that's a profile that Heimer will definitely like. Whether I think he'll be there long term with the likes of Cullen back and all the championship guys back in, he'd probably be a bit down the pecking order. But if Heimer does kind of really opt for that like bastard profile, as you were saying, I think he definitely could be in with a chance of getting in over maybe some guys playing regularly in the championship. Like,
yeah, and we'll obviously take a look at the Senegal squad and what Ireland do have in store for them when they do come up against them. But first, I do want to take a look at the striker situation, because I think it's a little bit bleak at the moment, and particularly the forward situation. Obviously, there's a couple that are out through injury, and then others that have just kind of fallen out of the picture due to lack of involvement. And I don't think you can really sum it up any better than the fact that Ryan Manning is listed as a forward. And to be honest, I don't think I've seen him play as a forward since his days at Eamon DC Park in Galway in about 2014 in the first division. So it's not looking too great. And then you look at the likes of Evan Ferguson, who obviously had a pretty torrid loan spell at West Ham. There's no other real way of putting it. And then the likes of Aaron Connolly, who's kind of fallen out the picture again, along with Michael Obafemi. It's not looking great. Obviously, Adam Idah, who we will talk about as well, has done pretty well this season. And there's a couple of others like Johnny Kenny. But overall, in terms of the players that maybe we would have expected to step up a couple of years ago, it hasn't really happened. And this squad kind of encapsulates that, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of changed because I think for a while, there's probably like you should have squads. You might have six kind of young, talented strikers who look like they're all going the right way. But yeah, as you say, like a few kind of dropped off, which is unfortunate. Obviously, the kind of Ferguson one is the major kind of letdown at the moment. Like, I don't think in any way, shape, or form that, you know, he's one you'd be kind of writing off or would expect to kind of go down the same route as Connolly or like Obafemi. Really, like, I think he'll be fine. Just a case of finding the right manager, right club. Like, his talent is just, he's way too talented for like anything to happen in that kind of way of dropping down to the championship or anything even. It could happen, but like, I think, you know, probably finding the right Premier League club or finding a European move is the way for him next season. Like, I think he needs probably a pretty good season, to be honest, like, because I think it could start to affect him and his confidence could start to wane and he'd lose a lot of sharpness in that, in kind of important years in his career, if he does have another kind of, you know, just like nothing season next season. That'd be really bad. But yeah, like on the flip side, I guess, like in the kind of absence of his form or consistency and without other lads like Connolly and Obafemi, with them no longer in the picture, we do have Idah and Parrott, like, who have had the best seasons of their careers. Like, you know, when we were excited about them, whatever it was, for the first time, like probably like what, 6 years ago now. And you know, I think if you kind of said, well, you know, when these guys are like 23, 24, one's scoring 20 goals a season for Celtic, another guy's scoring 20 in a season for Alkmaar, I think, you know, we got pretty ahead of ourselves. But I still think like you would have kind of taken that, assuming that they do build on this like in the next few years and go to like the next level again. But like, I think it's really worked out for them. They're kind of at good leagues where dips of form are, you know, more forgivable and like accepted at those clubs. You know, Parrott went a few games without scoring, but he's kept in the side and kind of contributed with his all-round game, and then ended up kind of knocking in 20 across the whole season. So I think that's really positive. And I think in the last international window, we thought Parrott was like really good. I don't think he was nominated for Player of the Year this year, but I think he would have been a pretty good contender there as well. So there is that side of it, which I'm quite positive about. And James, I suppose you can tell us more about like how Idah's been getting on at Celtic this season. He's got the goals, but I don't think like his performances have always been kind of loved by Celtic fans.
Yeah, it's a very weird topic, to be honest. Like, because like as you were saying, like Parrott and Idah both really matured over the last year, kind of two seasons for Idah, or for Parrott, kind of year and a half for Idah, in kind of their goal scoring rates, which never have been great. But like we're at a stage now where the pair of them are hitting kind of 15, 20 goals. Parrott in his last two seasons, Idah obviously this season, and it is really good. Like looking from the outside in at the stats, but like someone who's watched Idah every week, like, and it's a season kind of been a weird one in terms of like start of the season. Obviously, he's kind of playing second fiddle, and he started the season kind of quite poorly. Celtic fans kind of were getting on his back a bit. Kyogo, Furuhashi, who left in January, was kind of ahead of him. He scored his 20 goals this season kind of in patches. Like, so obviously the most memorable ones and the most kind of known was obviously the Villa 2 goals at Villa Park, where he was excellent that night, and kind of following that then went on a 3-4 goal scoring streak, which then ended. And then like since that, like I think he's kind of just all of his goals came in that kind of 3-4 stretch. It hasn't been consistently, and there are factors for that. Like I think his goals per minute ratio is quite good, and even when Kyogo left in January, Daisen Maeda, who was playing left wing, another Japanese guy, he kind of took the role at starting striker and just began absolutely banging them in, kind of keeping Idah out of the team. So like he has played second fiddle for the majority of the season, but he has finished the season really, really well, which is a positive for him and for Brendan Rodgers, because like 6 goals in his last 8 games, and I think there's a real sense that they're going to buy like a proper striker, a Kyogo replacement in the summer, for kind of been linked to a guy from Denmark, Kvitsgarden, who I think it's 13 million. Like, and if he comes in, he will be 100% starting every week. If we spend that outlay on him, and Idah will probably find himself on the bench. So it's definitely good he's finished the season well, and Brendan Rodgers really likes him, and it's been a maturing kind of season for him in terms of the goal output, the big moments. Obviously, another goal against Rangers at Ibrox. Obviously had the 10 Champions League appearances, 3 goals and 3 starts, I think it was. And to be fair, which is quite good considering like he only started 3 out of 10 games. And obviously the big night at Villa Park, he's had big moments like he did on the loan in his loan spell with the cup final winner, the Scottish Cup final winner in the last season. So it's a weird one with Idah. Like his goal scoring rate is his goal scoring like this season has been brilliant, but it's kind of the other parts of his game which Celtic fans have been critical of, his hold up play. It's kind of, he has a lot of kind of loose touches in the game. He can be quite awkward, and I think he's been misprofiled probably his whole career as like a target man. He's really not a target man. He's terrible in the air. His hold up play is not that good. Like the majority of the time he can't do the job, but it's not as his strength. Like his strength is kind of getting in behind, being a poacher in the box. And I like if Celtic can kind of play like that to his strengths, I think he'd be 100% be a starting striker. But it's just I think Celtic want more and kind of demand more from their strikers and how we play. So it'll just be interesting to see how that kind of develops in the summer. I think Parrot's probably a better all-round striker in terms of his hold the play and stuff and his decision making in the final third. So I'd probably go with him starting. But it is good to have two guys coming in off the back of good kind of seasons, 15 goal, 20 goal seasons.
I just jump in there though, like like Idah, like I've heard you say that before, that like his hold of play isn't that good for Celtic, and I assume that's true. But like I find it so strange. Like I mean, everyone watched those matches against Portugal in like 2021, where to me it looked like his hold up for like across the whole game or two, like on like multiple occasions, like he like held up the ball like really well, and like he just looked like he like mastered that side of the game. So I think it's so strange that like he clearly has the capacity, unless I'm like remembering it wrong. It looks like he has the capacity to do it. Like, so it's strange that he doesn't deliver it for Celtic often.
Yeah, I tweeted that ages ago about, like, I remember that performance away in away in Portugal. It was like unbelievable, his hold play. He was holding off Ruben Diaz, bringing us into the game, and we played really well that night. Like, and comparing to now, when you see him, to be fair, he started away to Atlanta early in the Champions League and was our main outball. Obviously, Atlanta dominated us, like, and he did look good in that role. Like, so he does have the capacity to do it. I don't know if it's just like a mental thing, a concentration thing. To be fair with Idah, I think it is kind of like the mental side to the game of every striker is big. In particular, I think what Idah, but his confidence stuff. Like he talked about in Norwich, how when he did feel wanted, kind of by the fans, by the manager, a lot of managerial change in Norwich, obviously. But like when he didn't really feel wanted or loved, he didn't play well. Like, and you've seen that at Norwich with his performances and his goal record. Like, and then comes up to Celtic, has a couple of months where he's absolutely loved, bangs the goals in, and then kind of starts the season. This season slow, then fans get it on his back, and he kind of goes on a really long kind of drought scoring wise. Like I think it's more like about kind of Celtic fans kind of giving him the confidence to do it, because he does have it in him. I think it's just he definitely loses confidence and lets kind of the outside stuff affect him. Kind of looking from the outside in, like that's what it kind of seems like.
Even his like shushing celebration at the last Ireland match, like he clearly listens to too much stuff online based off that kind of thing, you would think.
Yeah, it made no sense. I remember Ireland fans were like, what is he doing? But like the Celtic fans, it was clear he was shushing us up. And I think just not being on social media for him and any footballer is the best thing. Like, even like I'm a Celtic fan. The Celtic fans are brilliant, but like Twitter is just a cesspit, like, for terrible opinions and terrible takes. And there's a lot of it in the Celtic fan base as well, like a lot of reactionary stuff. Johnny Kenny's better than Adam Idah because he's scored against Aberdeen. Like, there's all like this kind of reactionary stuff, and every fan base has it, but in particular big clubs like Celtic have it in abundance. Like, so I just wouldn't really be reading too much into that. And I think if he can kind of just, I don't know, get off social media and just focus on his game, like, I think he'll be fine.
James, it's interesting you mentioned Johnny Kenny there, because I was going to bring that up. The fact that he has finally scored at a competitive level in the SPFL for Celtic. Obviously, like you say, it's Aberdeen. Maybe not the pinnacle of the game, and he obviously hasn't had a chance to do it on the international stage yet. But do you think he's getting to a stage now where he is approaching a level that he could maybe be in contention for the Ireland squad as we look ahead to the World Cup qualifiers?
Yeah, it's an interesting one in terms of Johnny, like, because I've watched him since, like, I was covering the Rovers Conference League game, so I watched his development since then, and I'd seen him obviously play before in the league for Rovers, and like the difference you could see as the Conference League went on, his confidence growing, and you could really see his like athleticism and his like kind of just like his springiness, like in terms of his like kind of in his jumping and stuff, and his kind of just how quick he is, how athletically good he is, and how he's kind of improved over the last year. He's kind of filled out physicality wise. Like, those are all traits you need to kind of like play at the highest level in terms of playing in Europe. like even Josh Onan getting called up, very, very quick guy, very good physically. Those are kind of the guys that are going to make it to the next level. If you kind of have those attributes, and I think Johnny's at the bide his time at Celtic. Like he obviously like had the first 3 or 4 months where he's kind of bedding in, kind of not making many matchday squads, and then Brendan Rodgers obviously then kind of starts to incorporate him in. And I was listening to the League of Ireland Central earlier, and he was saying like how Rodgers, he's been absolutely loved, like the best 5 months of his career with Celtic, even though he's not playing, just because of the elite environment working under Brendan Rodgers, who for some of his flaws, and like he's a huge ego, as most Liverpool fans would know, but like he is like a brilliant man manager, like, and he did talk about that and how that's helped him. And in terms of like how he's done in the games I've watched, I've always been really impressed with him. He looks really lively. Like his speed is translated in like just like kind of straight away into like Scotland. He clearly has elite speeds, but you obviously need to see him if he can kind of do it at that higher level. And he looks like that speed is elite, and that he can kind of, he has those kind of like attributes to play at the higher level. So it'll be interesting to see how the summer evolves. Like he said on League Ireland Central, like he's firmly thinks he's in Rodgers' plans for next season. I'd kind of be a bit doubtful of that, considering Idah's there, and I'd be very surprised if we didn't sign a striker. So he'd be kind of third choice. And I think for him and for the upward trajectory he's on, I'd probably like to see him go out on loan, maybe to like a Holland or a Belgium like Troy did, and kind of really use that kind of like elite physicality and speed he has. Also a really, really good finisher, which Rodgers has said. And I think that could be really good for him, getting kind of obviously like what Troy Parrott was saying, and how kind of more tactical the Netherlands is. If that'd be really good for him to kind of improve that side of his game. And I think if he can do that and get a regular move, I don't really see why not. He can't break into the Ireland squad. It's just about like playing week in, week out. And I'd be very surprised if he gets that at Celtic. I think this 5-6 months has been really good for him, because he's playing in that elite environment. He's been introduced to that kind of next level. And I think now it's just about finding his next move, kind of be playing a week in, week out, because I don't think that'll be with Celtic next season if we sign a new striker, which I think we will.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the end of our striker chat, but we do have something to cover at the other end of the pitch, and things are, I think it's fair to say, looking a good bit clearer in that regard, especially with regards to Caoimhin Kelleher's future. And actually, interestingly, as we said earlier on in the podcast, we have heard from a very reputable Liverpool journalist in the form of James Pearce of The Athletic. So let's just have a listen to what he has to say on the whole thing before we get into our conversation about it.
Of course, he is going to leave Liverpool this summer. Currently, Brentford are the latest team to register their interest in him. I think there'll be a number of options. When you look around the Premier League, there's a fair bit of uncertainty over a lot of number one goalkeepers this summer, and you think of the situation at Villa, the situation at Chelsea. We know there's been interest from Bournemouth. Forest obviously previously have made bids for Kelleher. So yeah, and that doesn't surprise me, because he is the best backup goalkeeper around. He's proven that time after time. Even this season, the fact that he was needed to play 10 Premier League games because of Alisson's injury problems, and the transition when he comes into the team was just seamless, because he ticks all the boxes that you want to see from a top level goalkeeper. So even though he's only got 1 year left, I would expect Liverpool still to command in excess of £20 million for him. I think I would expect them to be able to get that, when you look at how many clubs in the Premier League need a reliable number one. So it'll be sad to see him go, because he's been a fantastic servant to Liverpool, will leave behind all kinds of memories. But I think, at this juncture, it just makes sense for all parties. I think at the age of 26, he's desperate to be a number one. It hasn't quite happened for him in terms of getting a move previously. It could have happened in the last 2 summers, but Liverpool obviously didn't want to sell him, and there just wasn't the kind of offer that would have made them kind of reassess and really test their resolve. But especially with Mamardashvili coming in from Valencia, Liverpool have already got another keeper coming in to compete with Alisson I think Kelleher had made it very clear that he obviously wasn't going to sign a new contract. So this was Liverpool's their last shot really this summer in terms of getting a decent fee for him. So he'll certainly leave Liverpool with everyone's best wishes. And I've got no doubt he will go on and absolutely flourish wherever he goes to next. And of course, the Republic of Ireland will benefit as well because when you've got a goalkeeper as good as him, you want him to be playing regular club football. And certainly from the start of next season, I'd expect that to be happening for Caoimhin, but away from Anfield.
So that was James Pearce of The Athletic, and it seems fairly clear-cut that Caoimhin Kelleher is likely to leave Liverpool this summer. And I think it's fair to say it has been a long time coming. He probably could have had a move 2 years ago and certainly last summer when it did look for a long while that he was going to be leaving. And it looks like it has rolled around this time. It's looking likely at the minute that it's going to be Brentford. Do you think that's going to be a good move for him? And if so, would you expect that that's going to only benefit the Irish team, I'd imagine?
Yeah, you'd have to think so. I'd agree with most Liverpool supporters, most Irish supporters that if he wanted a Champions League move to a different country, to a Serie A club, become the next Scott McTominay, he could he could be the toast of Napoli if he wanted to. But I can kind of see the appeal of being in the Premier League as well, and I think it's just what we've been saying for years. He's just a top quality goalkeeper, and if he's playing every week, there's probably levels we haven't even seen yet. Really, whenever he has played for Liverpool for weeks on end or for a few months, he just improved as he was playing. So I think it's just really good for Ireland, probably really good for him as well. And it mightn't be the last transfer he makes in the next couple of years, because I think all the evidence we've seen from him is that he's just a really well-rounded goalkeeper who has very, very few flaws. And he's going to have more exposure now. People are going to be watching him every week, he's going to be playing every week. And I think for Ireland, it looks like he could be the nail-down goalkeeper for the foreseeable, which we haven't really been able to say up until now. So that's probably good for us and kind of just having reliability in terms of knowing who's going to be there. And I think it's really positive news. Yeah, it's just a good start to the summer transfer window for the Irish lads, really. I'm just pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I think we're not even being sensational or that optimistic that Kelleher is as good as we say. Is it's not just an Irish fanfare thing where we're kind of overrating him. I think Kelleher genuinely is a Champions League standard keeper. And Liverpool fans have kind of, even non-Irish Liverpool fans would say that he could play in the Champions League. So I think it would have been nice to see him go to a Leverkusen, as I said, or anyone kind of in the Champions League would have been nice. But listen, Brentford's a solid move. Very, very good club. Not going to get relegated really over the next few years. You'd be very surprised at how well run they are. And I think it's just about time that he's got the move, and it's a big positive going into September with him kind of playing week in, week out, and him not coming in cold.
And that's all our chat wrapped up in terms of the Irish squad anyways, but we still have to take a quick look at the Senegal squad. We will do a more match-focused podcast closer to the game on June 6th, but there is a fair bit of talent in that Senegal squad and quite a lot of players that many people will recognise. Obviously, Edouard Mendy between the sticks of Al Ahly, but formerly of Chelsea, and a very, very good player for them, along with Kalidou Koulibaly, who played in front of him. I suppose they're the kind of standout names in terms of the defensive third of the pitch, but you've also got the likes of Moussa Niakate, who has plied his trade for Lyon for a couple of years, and then another Ligue 1 player who really has caught the eye this season is Lamine Camara, and then players who would be very well known to Premier League fans as well in terms of Idrissa Gana Gueye of Everton and Pape Matar Sarr of Tottenham Hotspur, and another name as well is Pape Gueye as well at Villarreal, who's done really well for the past couple of years as well, and he's well worth his place. He'll probably be in the starting 11 as well. And then the forward line is just brimming with talent, really. You look at Nicholas Jackson at Chelsea, who's done really well this year. He's properly kicked on, in my opinion. Then Iliman Ndiaye, who's done really well since moving to the Premier League with Everton. And then Ismaila Sarr as well, who's just looks more and more dangerous every season, really. So, I mean, there's plenty to be worried about, I think it's fair to say. And like I said, we will come back to that at a podcast just before the match. But yeah, I'm slightly concerned by the talent that's in that squad, but I'm sure the likes of Nathan Collins is more than capable of keeping out some of those attacking talents. But yeah, certainly players to keep an eye on. So we will revisit that at a later date. But for now, in terms of the internationals anyway, that is all we're going to look at. We're going to quickly move on as we're conscious of time on this podcast as well, but I just want to have a quick recap of the season from an Irish point of view. There's been plenty of ups and downs for a lot of players that have featured in squads throughout the last couple of years, and maybe a few who have been unlucky to miss out or are on the fringes. But lads, I'm interested to get your opinions here on probably 3 categories, I would say, in terms of the standout player from an Irish perspective this year, a player who's maybe gone under the radar, and maybe one who's also disappointed you, just to end off on a bit of a sour note.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the like same situation we've had for a while, where most of our talent tends to be at centre back, really. So I think Nathan Collins like played every minute in the Premier League, or at least every game in the Premier League this season. Like, he just looks kind of exactly what everyone wants him to be in terms of club football. Looks like really modern, well-rounded centre back. So he's probably like the standout Premier League player we've had this season. But in terms of kind of standard Irish seasons, I think you could look at other centre backs, even for like the kind of under the radar category, like O'Shea. I think he won player of the season for Ipswich, or Wander players of the season anyway, maybe like players player of the year or whatever. And like, I have a great time for him. O'Brien at Everton as well. Like, so like all 3 of them have had really good seasons, and that's a pretty solid trio there if we can play them together. Or O'Brien on the right maybe, like so I think in that regard, very positive. We kind of mentioned the 2 lads up front as well, Idah and Pearce, so like pretty encouraged by them also. And I think the obvious one really when it comes to kind of let down a player you hope for more of the season, it is Ferguson. Like, everyone wanted Ferguson to have a good season. To hope to move to West Ham would have actually kind of spurred something in him, and it actually like made his situation worse. Who's like 8 appearances, and like so many of them were just like short cameos where he did nothing really. So yeah, like I think overall probably a mixed season. Like, I saw a few people like on Twitter and that saying, probably wasn't like vintage, or there wasn't many like standout kind of storylines, and especially like in the Championship, apart from maybe like Finn Azaz, there wasn't a whole lot happening in the same way there was with like maybe Smolix last season and stuff like that. But at least the kind of frontline players like Nathan Collins did really well. So geez, I just hope Collins can bring that into international football, because like I think he's been pretty poor for at least a year for Ireland now. Like, and like I think the highlights reel, or whatever you want to call it, like wouldn't look great for him over the last like even 2 campaigns. So I'll be honest, I was quite surprised he was nominated for Ireland Player of the Year if it's based on international games, because yeah, for some reason he hasn't really replicated it. But having said that, he's definitely a standout player in the Premier League.
Yeah, for standout, I think obviously Collins, just to not be copying around, and I'll go Jake O'Brien, because I think as well as kind of his versatility as well, and how he's been utilised at Everton, like with playing at right back, I think that could be big, especially with kind of how flexible Heimer is, kind of depending on what formation he plays and how we kind of switch in game. And like obviously the dearth of options we have at fullbacks, Caoimhin and Doherty are obviously getting on, and we don't know what their kind of international futures look like. So it's yeah, kind of having him there as an option at right back if we need it is really positive. And obviously he's had a really, really good season at Everton, kind of getting goals and stuff as well, which is nice to see. Under the radar then, I was thinking just from watching a lot of Scottish football this year, obviously watching Celtic, just Will Ferry's been really good at Dundee United, and kind of in a position where we're, again, as I was saying, the full back slots, but especially left back, are really kind of short. Like in one injury could maybe even see him kind of really brought into the fold, like, because we don't have many kind of high performing left backs in EFL or Scotland, like so it's definitely one to look at in the next year if he can keep that up at Dundee United. They had a really good year this year, just got promoted. If he can kind of keep up that form, like he could very well be in the Irish picture. And then one that disappointed me, obviously the obvious one's Ferguson, but I think for me in particular, I was really excited at Andy Moore and Boston Wild about going to Stoke. I was hoping like they'd get loads of minutes. I kind of thought they wouldn't be starting, obviously, but they would get lots of minutes. And Moore, and obviously kind of as the seasons came to its last couple of months, hasn't played at all, really kind of cameos off the bench. And then Boston Wall obviously kind of had the bad injury and stuff, so they kind of had kind of disappointing years for different reasons, because I think them two are going to play a big part in kind of Ireland's future in terms of our midfield as well, as we were saying, kind of how we needed to be shaken up, and them 2 guys are going to hopefully be the guys to do that. So kind of in the summer, hopefully the pair of them can get moves kind of on loan maybe. Boston Wall obviously had that loan at Fleetwood in League One. Andy Moore, you'd love to see him go to like Union Saint-Gilloise with the Brighton link, obviously. or something like that. You like to see both of them kind of getting regular football and then hopefully kind of getting into the Ireland squad then. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's an interesting one to look at the midfield going forward, but I'm going to be really interested to see how many minutes Andrew Moran does play, because obviously the loan he had this year was a little bit disappointing, but the fact he's in the Ireland squad does show he's still highly rated by Hamer, despite what has happened this season and maybe the way it has faded out for him. But we'll leave the squad talk and all that talk there for now. But before we do wrap up, we just want to extend a congratulations to the Irish women's team, who defeated Turkey 2-1 in Istanbul this evening, Friday. And that's given them a chance to win automatic promotion to Nations League A on Tuesday, when they host Slovenia at Parky Cueve on Tuesday at 6 o'clock. And then also to Ireland under-17s, who have qualified for the World Cup and will face Panama, Uzbekistan and Paraguay. Quite the list in the group stages of that tournament. The likes of League of Ireland players Michael Noonan, Victor Oceanvuna and Killian Tollett are among the talents in the squad, while we've also got Jaden Ume of Benfica and Grady McDonald of Club NXT in Belgium, and of course Rory Finneran of Newcastle. So all of those players are well worth keeping an eye on, but we'll revisit that at a later date and probably closer to the time. I'm sure we'll have at least one podcast between now and then where we'll take a look at them. But that's all for another day. But for now, we are out of time. So lads, I just want to say a sincere thank you. It's been difficult logistically to get everyone back together for a podcast, but we are hoping to get a few more out and on a more consistent basis going forward. And we will endeavour to do that, particularly with the end of James's Erasmus and Dylan's Erasmus when he finally does get his equipment sorted. But yeah, for now, we will leave you as we always leave you, and that's with a featured artist of our choice. And this week we have opted for little-known under-the-radar rap trio Kneecap and their new single, The Recap. Thanks for listening, and catch you next time.